I don't know if you know any of this. I kept it so under wraps. Nobody knew. I kept it so far from my parents, but for my senior year of high school, I was like heavily addicted to smoking weed every single day. Every single day. I was super duper just isolated, alone, depressed, anxious, and very, very, very like did not want to live. And smoking weed was the only thing that really like
Took
made
the
me
edge
want to get
off.
up. Yeah, but it was the only thing that I looked forward to during the day.
Yeah.
Um, so I graduated. I went to University of South Carolina. I was there for a semester. Smoked the entire semester away. It was such a waste. I dropped out, came home, and I had nothing. I had nothing. I had nothing planned, nothing going on. I was just working at a restaurant, and it was like 7 months of just nothing. I would stay in bed until 4 in the afternoon. I'd go to bed at 6 a.m.
Mm.
And my family was so concerned, but they didn't want
Yeah.
to kick me out, and they didn't know how to make me stop because I was just so dependent and I didn't care. Like I when it comes to addiction, it is such a monster. Like you
Yeah.
prioritize it over your family, over your finances.
Yep.
Everything comes below this addiction. Um,
Yep.
and I was just so stuck. It came to a certain point where I'd been smoking for like a year and a half, and I was just, I hate this. I remember journaling like I hate weed, but I couldn't. It was the only place I could get that like rush of dopamine or whatever. But um,
Yeah.
yeah, so then I was home doing nothing. My dad hired me to be on his film crew for Godman. And we would go on these trips and we would sit on these interviews with these just amazing men and women of God. And I would listen to them talk about Jesus. And at this point, you have to understand, I was not sure that Jesus was it. I thought the
Yeah.
Bible was very
Yeah.
misogynistic. I thought it was whack. I literally described the Bible as whack.
Yeah.
Um, I had grown up in such a godly home with the word just poured into me. But I just was so confused. I was
Yeah.
really, really blinded by pride. Um, I wanted to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um, so we would go on these film trips, and I would like bring edibles with me and literally get high in the hotel room after we would like be doing ministry and filming during the day because I wasn't doing the ministry. I was just like the camera person.
Mm.
And it was just such a mess. But my heart was slowly like being like chipped at every single trip,
Mm.
Yeah.
and I was just like, my heart was just softening, honestly.
Yeah.
And we went to in July, we went to Alaska for a week. As soon as we touched down in Alaska, I said to myself, I'm supposed to come back here. I know I'm supposed to come back here. I don't know what it is, but I'm supposed to come back here. And we met this amazing woman. We filmed at her restaurant and lodge. And I asked her, I was like, would you hire me? Like, could I come work here? She's like, yeah, I'd hire you. Amazing woman of God. So a few weeks later, actually, I moved back to Alaska. After we had filmed there for a week, I moved back to Alaska and was working there. And she had a daughter about my age, and this daughter was planning to go to Christ for the Nations, which I had never heard of Christ for the Nations. Um, and the mom's name was Janine, and she looked at me one day after I'd been working there for 4 weeks. She pointed at me. She's like, "You're gonna go to Christ for the Nations with Chloe." I was like, "Absolutely, I will not be going to Christ for the Nations with Chloe. No, ma'am." It's like it's not an accredited school. I was actually considering going to study in London at the time. I just got accepted to University of the Arts London. Like I was ready to go to the club scene in London and be studying photography with the elite. And it was just the last thing I would ever do is go to Dallas, Texas. And I just could not. The rest of the time I was working there, I could not get it out of my head that she said that. Why would she say that to me? And so right before I moved back to South Carolina, I sat down with Janine. I was like, tell me about Christ for the Nations. Like, why would anybody want to go there? And she was just like, girl, you wake up every day, 8 a.m. There's worship every morning. You're out by noon. You could work a full-time job if you want to. Really amazing people, amazing community, affordable. You can just go for a year if you want. And nothing in my brain registered that I would have to be learning about God in the Bible. Nothing. It was like God completely removed that from my like processing
Come
of
on.
like maybe it being, oh, maybe I do want to go here because I wanted to be sober. That's actually why I went to Alaska, is because I didn't smoke for those like 7 weeks I was there.
Right.
And it was so miserable. Like every single day I'd come home and be like, oh my gosh, this sucks. I wish I could just get high. It was so horrible. And I came home and
Yeah.
immediately just started smoking again. But I came home and I applied for Christ for the Nations. I was like, why not? Um, If I hate it, I could drop out. Who cares? And so that was at the beginning of October. I came home, and we were planning a trip for the movie to Rio de Janeiro in December. And about a week before the trip, I started having the most horrible dreams of like me being robbed in Rio, me being raped in Rio, like vivid dreams. And I just was full of dread for the first time in my life. I've never been full of dread before. And I was like, Dad, I am not supposed to go on this trip. Do not make me go on this trip. Something horrible is going to happen to me. I know it. I know something bad is going to happen to me. He's like, it's too late. You know, we're going in a week. I don't know. Like, I can't hire somebody else. So we went, and we have never had more pushback on our travel experience, like than any of the other film trips. Like just with flights and being delayed and being sent to the wrong place. Somebody accused, like we almost got arrested on one of the planes. Like it was bizarre. What was happening? So we landed in Rio, and as soon as I walked in that luggage area, I hit my knees. And I just started sobbing. Like Holy Spirit fell on me, and I had, you know, I was smoking weed the day before, guys. Like I was not, and I just started sobbing. I looked at my dad. I was like, Dad, I think I was really supposed to come this week. I don't know what's gonna happen.
Wow.
But something is gonna change, and it's really hard to put the week in words. But everything in me just got flipped upside down and inside out. We filmed with these missionaries who have been working in one of the biggest slums in South America. It's like 4,000 families live in just pure garbage. It's a garbage dump. It's one of the biggest garbage dumps in Latin America. And it was their faith. It was those missionaries' faith that saved me, essentially. Wow. They couldn't talk about Jesus without crying. They couldn't pray without like just being so in awe of what he had done. And I had never seen that, like, in display, that awe and fear of God of the cross. Because when you're raised in a Christian household, you become so numb to what happened on Calvary. Yep. You become so numb to the fact that I genuinely did not deserve that. I started, I was the worst of sinners because I heard the gospel and I walked away. I was the worst of sinners because I thought I deserved the cross.
Yeah.
Like that's embarrassing, but it's true. Yeah. And so that's why I was fine just walking away and knowing that he still loved me, not and doubting whether or not he was the answer. So at one point when we were in Brazil, we were standing on the street of the slum, and there was this baby I was playing with hide and seek, and on the other side of me there was this church they were worshiping. And I just had a moment. I just started weeping, seeing these people who have nothing worship, so full of joy, so full of peace. They have everything they could ever want because they have Jesus. And I prayed such a simple prayer. I said, God, give me dirt. I don't care. My life is yours. Like I will sleep on a dirt floor. I will go anywhere you want. My life is no longer my own. It's yours. I can't do it. I need you. And that was it. And I came home, and it was so subtle. A week went by, and I wasn't being discipled or anything. I had no like structure. I wasn't reading my Bible very often. I started worshiping all the time, but I had no structure. And a week went by, and I realized I haven't thought about weed once. Yeah. I was like, that's weird. And so my friends were smoking, and they're like, hey, you want to come smoke? I was like, yeah, sure. Went and smoked with them. For the first time in my life, I was miserable. What is this? This is not the same thing. This is horrible. I don't want to do this ever again. God completely healed my addiction that I had struggled with for 2 years.
Come on, Jesus.
And he took away my taste for weed. Something that I thought I would not be able to function as a functioning adult because I just craved it so bad. He took away my craving. He took away my enjoyment of it.
Yes.
Amazing. Come on.
I want to scream.
I know. Wow. But y'all, I cannot stop telling people, everyone I meet, gas station people, like
I love it.
People.
Girl.
I made a hoodie, and on the back it says, Jesus took away my addiction. I know he is real.
Oh, come on.
You know, I've seen you go through all these different, you know, journeys and peaks and valleys. And, you know, I I knew you were going through a rough one. Not details from your heart, which is, really what I wanted to hear, like your heart, right? But your dad would call and he'd say, please pray, please pray for Seren, please pray for Seren. And so Roger and I would be faithful to pray. And in a certain sense, I never doubted or
Yeah.
worried deeply, about you finding your foundation. But what I always doubt and worry about with young people, which is why I really so wanted you to share today, is what I worry about is it's so hard for young people to put their feet on the rock, to find their way
Yeah.
back to, because so much of the world around you guys it just glorifies everything secular. And look, weed is legal in California. It's legal in a lot of states now. And I find that to be the most insane thing, because I'll tell you, when I was in my 20s and, I was in my complete season of smoking weed every day, you're a little bit brain dead,
Yeah.
and you're not who you are. It's
Yeah.
numbing you away from what God called you to be. And it amazes me that we live in a country that would make things like this legal, because it makes me wonder if, like, wow, is Satan that much on the throne in this country that we're telling a generation of kids, just go numb yourself because we don't want to
Right.
deal with you,
Right.
and how hard was it for you, Seren, like, to actually break with your peers, who are still maybe smoking and
Yeah.
addicted,
Yeah. Well, first of all, just to speak a little bit to that, it was so ultra, ultra, ultra normalized. Like, if you have any bit of anxiety, you have the full right to be smoking weed as much as you need. You know what I mean? Like, it's pushed so heavily. I mean, I remember just feeling so justified in my addiction because of social media and how much content I would see from other people who smoked weed. And we would, me and my brother would get in arguments with my mom, like, so pro weed. It's like, Mom, like, come on. And she's wise, and so it's definitely there's a lot of just deception going on with how it's very chill. It doesn't matter. There could be so many worse things, that you could be doing other than weed, but weed is such a monster. It is such a monster because it, like you said, it makes you somebody that you're not. But yeah, honestly, when I came home from Brazil, I immediately finished my registration for Christ for the Nations. And that was in mid-December. And then at the beginning of January, I was in Dallas. And so it was weird. I completely moved.
Wow.
And a lot of these friends, that I was also very isolated. I had like 2 friends that I saw maybe once a month. And it was just to smoke with them.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
drug buddies. Drug buddies.
right.
I used to have them. Yeah.
Yeah, come on. But for me, it's been a lot of, I've made probably four Instagram posts just like with a paragraph of what, like, just a little bit of God's goodness. I have a lot to say about it. And so for me, I haven't been seeing them in person. I text them sometimes just that I love them. I try not to tell them. I don't know. It's been weird just because I haven't seen them in person, but I do post on Instagram and I know they see it because they like it. And I always wonder what they think. And also I believe that we all have our own garden, right? We all have our own little Eden that we're in charge of. And there's very specific people that God wants us to be praying for and interceding for. And so my like 2-3 friends that I was in the pit with, I know for a fact that they're going to be saved. I know it because they're within my sphere of influence. So why wouldn't they be? I'm interceding for them. I don't care how long it takes, but I know that there are people interceding for me since before I was like from the time I was conceived.
Amen.
My grandparents and my parents have been interceding for me, and my parents probably struggled with this just through the years of like what's going on, you know what I mean? But God was so frickin' faithful.
Yeah.
So faithful. I don't care
Yes,
what
he
Yeah.
anybody says. He
Yes.
is faithful.
Yes, girl.